Friends, I'm back here and I'm using this fancy technology right now called an iPhone, and this little mic here that plugs right into the iPhone. It's magical. I'm actually sitting on my desk that I have this fancy mic and this computer all set up, but I'm trying something different. Well, it doesn't really matter. Let's get into what I want to talk about today. And if you're looking on the video, you will see the cover of The Road to Serfdom. This is, again, I think I mentioned this in my last episode. I've got a few more episodes I want to do talking about like different things in this book. So today I want to talk about two things. One, I want to talk about the loss of freedom because of freedom. And it's an interesting concept, so stick with me here. Sort of freedom being a victim of its own success. And we've got to come up with something, taking it into today's world with our kids, and try to avoid losing more freedom. And the other thing I want to talk about is emergent order. Emergent order, I'll get into it when I get into that topic. I learned from Russ Roberts on the Econ Talk podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. I suggest if you're at least half as nerdy as I am when it comes to economics and trying to understand the world beyond loving Trump or hating Trump, or Republican, Democrat, CNN, or Fox News, I want to understand more than that, and I want to understand, well, if I'm a Republican, why am I a Republican? If I'm a Democrat, why am I a Democrat? I'm an independent. Why am I an independent? What do I believe in? Why do I believe in it? And my beliefs sometimes change as I learn the reasons why things happen. And digress right there. So Econ Talk, Russ Roberts is brilliant. If I could find the link to I think it's a 6-minute video, and he talks about what emergent order and paints just a beautiful picture. I'm gonna quote something from him and talk just a little bit about it. But if you're really interested in it, I suggest you go and watch that, listen to it, download his podcast. It's one of the more, it's entertaining because the conversation is entertaining, and it's honest. So back to the Road to Serfdom. And again, as I mentioned, this book is, I've read it all the way through, I think once, but then I go back and I read bits and pieces of it. And it always brings me back to wanting to write or to podcast, because it's so great because you could just get into little tidbits, little subjects, and really dig deep into these little subjects and really get you thinking about topics such as freedom and government control and opportunity and equality and what these things mean. Now, he wrote this in, I think it was 1941 or 1944, I forget, but it's old. It's a long time ago. But it stands, I think it's still, among economists, I think this is definitely a must-read, at least for armchair economists like myself who don't do this for a living, but are just interested in reading something that's approachable. It's not the easiest read in the world, but it's still approachable. If you're watching again, you can see all of my notes, lots of highlighting. So I just want to talk about this one concept here that he's talking about in what can happen. And I think we see it happening somewhat in our society today. So I'll jump into it right now. But while the progress toward what is commonly called positive action, which growth, accumulation of wealth, was necessarily slow, and while for the immediate improvement, liberalism had to rely largely on the gradual increase of wealth which freedom brought about. Okay, so just to take a step back here, when we're talking about liberalism in this context, we're not talking liberal versus conservative. I actually think that while it's not a perfect definition, that in this era, in this context, the word liberal actually means almost more conservative. It's a individual freedom, lack of government interference type stuff. It's probably not the best definition, but when I want you to, when you hear me say liberal, you're not thinking like liberal like Nancy Pelosi liberal. We're thinking like liberal like I don't know, old school liberal, libertarian type stuff. Okay, so again, while the progress towards what is commonly called positive action, which is growth and wealth accumulation, was necessarily slow, and while the immediate improvement, freedom, liberalism, had to rely largely on the gradual increase of wealth which freedom brought about. So this wealth, freedom is, there's this wealth that is growing in society that is there because of the freedom. It had constantly to fight proposals which threatened its progress, because it's never enough. It's never enough, it's never fast enough. I want it now and I want more, right? Which, on the surface, and really when it comes to, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we want people who are ambitious to want to grow more, to have more. But it's what we want to do to it, or it's how we gain that growth, which could be the problem. So, but I don't want to get too far off here. It came to be regarded as a negative creed because it could offer to particular individuals little more than a share in the common progress, a progress which came to be taken more and more for granted and was no longer recognized as the result of the policy of freedom. So this growth that people were feeling, and I think we feel it now, right? People forget that they're getting this growth because there's freedom, not because there's not government or somebody else, some puppet master can make us have faster growth. And I think that's sort of the argument that we see between people who want government control or central planning, which is what he uses, maybe socialism type stuff, and people who say stay out. The government needs to stay out. Central planners need to stay out of the economy. So again, people forget that the success that we have is because of the freedoms we have. It might even be said that the very success of liberalism became the cause of its decline. Because of the success already achieved, man became increasingly unwilling to tolerate the evils still within him, which now appeared both unbearable and unnecessary. Because of the growing impatience with the slow advance of liberal policy, it's not growing fast enough, we're not getting enough fast enough, we want more and more and more. The just irritation with those who use liberal phraseology in defense of antisocial privileges, and the boundless ambition seemingly justified by the material improvements already achieved. It came to pass that toward the turn of the century, the belief in the basic tenets of liberalism was more and more relinquished. Lots of things going on there. What I'm seeing here is people are forgetting that the freedom is what has led to this economic success. And this next thing I want to read is what jumped out at me that made me think, I want to think more about this, and I want to put this out there. What had been achieved came to be regarded as secure and imperishable possession acquired once and for all. So the freedom we have, our means to produce, our means to be successful, to create, to build businesses, to build opportunities, to go get educated, all that stuff, it's here. We can never lose it. This is sort of the common acceptance, which I think we'd all really, when we take a step back, we agree, wait, no. This is not guaranteed. And maybe this is the debate. Maybe this is the debate we need to have, that we can lose this freedom. And the argument that I think people, at least from the conservative or the libertarian side, say that we're more likely to lose this freedom from within than someone marching at our borders, with an army marching at our borders coming to take us over. What we see now, and this is the argument, okay? So this is the argument I think a lot of people now, at least on the right, that argue against more government control, more government regulation, is that we're handing over those freedoms, and we're literally losing those freedoms. Again, we could argue whether this is good or not, and every specific thing we need to do this, but that's the problem. And I'm going to get a little deeper into that in a few an episode or two. Hayek talks a lot about central planning, so it's again mind-boggling. The eyes of the people became fixed on their new demands, the rapid satisfaction of which seemed to be barred by the adherence to old principles. It became more and more widely accepted that further advance could be expected not along the old lines within the general framework which had made past progress possible, but only by complete remodeling of society. Okay. It became more and more widely accepted that further advance could only be expected not along the old lines within the general framework which had made the past possible, but only by a complete remodeling of society. So the only way we can get more is by burning the thing down and starting all over. And as he gets into this, and I see a lot of parallels. This is what I see, and this is what scares me. We get into central planning. We get into socialism. We get into the government. Like, listen, this is all, we want more. More of us want more. So we want the government to give it to us because we think that's a better way to do it. This is what's happening. This is what's happening in what he's writing. And he talks, this is sort of what happened in Nazi Germany. And we want to understand this and study this, at least I do, because I don't see direct parallels, but I see a lot of parallels to today. And when we're asking for more from the government, it costs us our freedom, and it doesn't just cost us this little thing that we have to fill out and get this license or we have to get this registration. It costs money, it costs opportunity, it costs things that way beyond what we can understand in our individual level. And the argument continues to be who is better suited to understand the needs of the individual, or some central planner. In our case, it's some bureaucrat in Washington, or a king or a president or whatever. And I'll argue all day long. And most of the people I listen to on podcasts and economics books, and Hayek certainly read, the individual knows much more. Again, I'll get into an episode, I'll talk more on central planning, but he explains why. Because I think some people believe, no, I think the government could do more, because it seems like it. So I'm digressing. So my fear here, though, is we're forgetting that this freedom that we have, we can lose it. It's not guaranteed. When he says it became secure and imperishable possession, acquired once and for all, it's good. We got this freedom. We're never going to lose it, except we're just handing it away. And as the hope of a new generation came to be centered on something completely new, interest in and understanding of the functioning of the society rapidly declined. And while the decline of the understanding of the way in which the free system worked, our awareness of what depended on its existence also decreased. So this is the problem. We're not getting enough fast enough. So we want more. Who's going to give me more? And because things seem so good, I forgot what it was like when it was bad. I don't want to understand what it used to be, and I don't know how this all works. All I know is I go to work and I get money, or I built my business, or my dad built his business and he's successful. And I want to be successful, but I don't want to do all that work. People stop understanding what it takes to have freedom. Instead, they want to fix everything. And I put my note in here. Maybe this is a little harsh, but I use this term, useful idiots. I use this term a lot. I didn't coin the term. But this idea of, I've got all this success. I've got all this free time on my hands. I don't want to be bothered with trying to understand why I have this success. And listen, I think it's an honest thing. I think it's especially now, and this is written in the 1940s. The internet was terrible in the 1940s. But now it's great. I've got YouTube on my Roku. I go camping and I can watch podcasts. I can't watch Hulu, though. That kind of drives me nuts. But another digression. The point is, people have so much free time and success, they take it for granted. They stop with this eagerness to try to understand, why do we have freedom? In order to understand how we can actually lose the freedom. And the system itself, or the people that have maybe some sinister, I don't know. It's hard. I don't believe that most people want to take your freedom. I believe some people want to get elected, and they don't care that when they promise something, that they're creating something bigger than them that they have no control over. The point is that people aren't learning about freedom. They aren't learning about the system, our system of government. People are arguing about Supreme Court justices. They don't understand how different laws are made. They don't understand how the Supreme Court works. It's complex, but it's not like crazy complex. It's not like biochemistry complex. So when we don't know how all this works, we don't understand how our freedom works, we don't understand why it's important to not give up certain freedoms, we just, whatever, I want more. So this person can control this. If it were only if gas prices just weren't so much, we could haul our goods across country a lot easier. So if I get the government to control the gas prices, well, you control the gas prices, you control the supply, and all of a sudden, this whole beautiful system, and this is where I get into emergent order. Again, if you really want to understand this, don't listen to me, but listen to Russ Roberts. You could probably just Google Russ Roberts emergent order and watch the 6-minute video. It's pretty awesome. But emergent order, as he says, is the hidden harmony that is all around us, the seemingly magical wand that we anticipate. Is that what it is? The magical wand that we anticipate and meet the needs of each other without anyone being in charge, like this magic puppet master. But there is no puppet master. And he argues, and libertarians, and I believe the founding fathers of our country believe that this is the best way. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. People are left out. People are hurt by it. People fail. But for the most part, when you wake up tomorrow morning, you drive to your baker, there's a bagel. There's a bagel that you want. There's a hot cup of coffee that you want. And if you don't show up, there's a hot cup of coffee for the other guy that shows up. And if you decide you want to have a waffle, you drive over to the Waffle House and there's a waffle there for you. It's magical. It seems magical. And the argument here is, the more we allow this to happen with freedom, the more we allow people to just, with their own almost self-serving needs. I had a professor in college, history professor, real good history professor, told great stories, much better than I'm doing right now. But he told great stories. But he said one of the first things he asked us, what is the core principle of our nation? He didn't say economy, but really I think it's our economy, but of our nation. What is it that holds it all together? People are like, love, freedom, happiness, family. Greed. He said greed. Maybe that's a harsh word because it means, greed will steal from other people, but it's more like self-interest. But he said greed, but it just really, I remember this was like 25 years ago. But the self-interest, that I have this self-interest that I want to create something of value so I can sustain myself, so I can feed my family, so I can find the success that I'm willing to work for. I'm willing to work for a certain level. I'm willing to put a certain amount of work in with the expectation that I'm going to have a certain amount of success. So if I want to be a baker, I'm going to bake things, and I'm going to bake things, and I'm going to sell, and what I get in exchange for that, I'm going to go buy vegetables so I can cook things for my family. I'm going to buy fuel. I'm going to buy all this stuff. Times that by 100,000 in a city, 500,000 in a city, 1 million in a big city. And you have all these people doing that, and it just works. I lost you there. But so that's the core, the crux of, I guess a crux, I don't know, the word of the day, of emergent order. Again, go to that website. So just to sum things up here. So again, freedom leads to success, and it leads to this time to ponder things, this time to think about things other than how do we get success. Well, after a while, there's all this success. What do we do with our time, with our thinking, with our education? And again, he gets in a little bit of this, that people spend time, and we see it now with all these causes, and these causes are great. It's great to save the rainforest. Some people believe in climate control, all that stuff. It's important, but not at the expense of understanding why and how we have freedom. Because if we don't understand it, we're apt to maybe give it up. And that's just a little scary. It's just a little scary. So freedom leads to success, time to ponder things, and people, we should fix things. We should fix things. And how do we want to fix things? With government control. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully I can get back soon and talk a little more about where that government control and central planning leads to. Hopefully I've made a little bit of sense for you. With that, have a great day.